Um, so this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Brightside Global Trade TV. It's a podcast to empower you and your business. And we had a children's hour this evening with Sharon Lynn Fordham, and she really opened our eyes to stand up to bullies, especially stand up for our children. I'll make sure that the link is available for her book. And then we had a fabulous a book about immigrant children and parenting children with Tina. And I'll make sure that you have her link as well. And now on to my next speaker. I'm going to now move to my adult section. And we are talking all things about mental awareness, because mental health is very important. And this month, we've had a lot with the United Nations celebrating empowerment and talking a lot about mental health wellness. I have here with me Stacey Powells, and she's a published writer and journalist, and her play Stirrups continues to be produced in several theaters nationwide, and her radio show, The Exhausted Parent Network, is recalibrated into a podcast. She has several film, television, and book projects in various stages of development, and works in the music industry as her side gig to support her writing career. Stacey lives in Sierra Nevada mountains with her second and final husband. And while her ass isn't splattered in front of the computer, she loves to travel, and she bears off her property, hike, play, and pickleball, and spend time with her girlfriends. Stacey went through quite a lot. I had a long chat with her, and I was like blown away with her story, and I know you will be too. But what she was able to achieve and overcome and turn this into a positive outcome with her book not only empowered me, but I think it's going to empower you, especially during the holidays. Many of us will be having really difficult times, having lost a loved one, going through a divorce, or any kind of sorrow. And you really need to have Stacey's book right by your side, because the holidays is one of the most difficult and most challenging times for some people, while it's a great joy for others. And especially with our veterans, this is a very powerful audience for us, and we want to thank them for their service. And when I hear about so many suicide rates, it bothers me a lot. So this is a book that should be your go-to for 2022, and it's a very easy read. And Stacey, over to you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I have to say, I just love the collection here that we have on your station here. This is fabulous. And I'm just so grateful and honored to have been asked. So yes, as Elizabeth said, my book is Empty Cupboards, and it is an analysis of the breakdown of a commonsensical menopausing Leo living in high altitude where oxygen is scant. And I mean that because I'm close to 8,000 feet at sea level here. And these stories, there are 31 essays. And the reason I put these together and finally got them out, and I say finally because I was ashamed and stigmatized about my mental health problems because I wasn't allowed to fall apart. I was supposed to have it all together. I was supposed to, grow up and raise my kids and be able to work and handle all the pressures that come with all of that, and be okay with it. And I wasn't okay with it. So in the middle of my breakdown, I'm gonna read. Actually, I'm gonna read the first few sentences of the breakdown. Okay, it's called the neurasthenia, which means breakdown. I thought it was a fancy word, so I had to put it in my book. It's the hardest, it's the hardest word in the entire book. I swear to you, neurasthenia. I just love that. Happened when I was walking upstairs to my bedroom. It was the spring of 2001. I dropped my two boys off at school, one middle school and one high school, and inhaled a cream cheese muffin on my way home. After almost 18 years, my music licensing job at Paramount Pictures had imploded. I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, and I was tired of asking my family for help. I felt the walls of my brain closing in on itself. On step 8 or 9 of the stairs, I halted. My hand was on the wood banister. I staggered, unable to catch my breath, and sat down on the carpeted stair. I was experiencing my first panic attack. I thought it was a heart attack or that my asthma was about to go into full-blown assault on my lungs. But it wasn't the physical sensations that got me. It was the understanding that at that moment, if there had been a gun in the house, someone else would have had to pick up my boys from school. And that moment, I still get a little fermented about that, really freaked me out for saying something else. And I called my mother and I said, I need help. This is what's happening. I can't handle it anymore. And I had just come off a 15-year marriage. Very, very, very stressful. My first husband was an actor. 4 months after we were married, we were out one night. He stayed late at 2:30 in the morning because I had to be at work the next morning. 2:30 in the morning, I get a knock on the door from our neighbor. He had broken his leg. I took him to, and I'm giving a very short version. I took him to St. Joseph's Medical Center in Burbank. They put a half splint on the leg because it was compound fracture. They had to put the bone back in, sew it up, put a half splint on his leg for 6 days. Then they're supposed to take that off, put a full cast on, and then he'd be good to go in 6 weeks. Well, that first cast they put on had an exothermic reaction, meaning it got too hot. And the nurses and the doctors and the hospital care didn't pay attention to my ex-husband when he was saying my leg is burning because they thought he was too drunk. He was drunk when he came in, but they just kept shooting him up with morphine and Demerol. And 6 days later, when they took that cast off the back of his leg from the top of his thigh all the way down to his heel, 3rd-degree burns. It was black. And so our whole marriage was surgeries, legs. My ex-husband lost his acting career. We got pregnant in between the surgeries. I'm trying to work full time. His substance abuse got worse. His verbal abuse got worse. And this was 15 years. And I remember about 7 years into the marriage thinking, okay, maybe things will get better. We always have hope, right? We hope things are going to get better. Maybe after Father's Day, maybe after the kid's birthday, maybe after Christmas, but it never got better. And one incident happened and I said, after 15 years, I can no longer be in this marriage. And what got to me was about a few months before that, I remember walking up the stairs from my office. I worked in my house at that time. Paramount Pictures let me move to Mammoth Lakes and keep my job, which was really great. And I remember walking up the stairs and thinking, if I ever got breast cancer, I probably wouldn't tell anybody. And that'd be my way out of this. And then I got divine intervention. And I know we're not supposed to swear on this and I'm not going to swear, but somebody said, oh, no, you're not. That is not what's going to happen to you. You've got to find another way out. Your boys need you. And so I left the marriage, and it was very acrimonious. Of course, I was blamed for everything. My ex never took accountability for anything that happened in the marriage. And just one thing piled after another, and I broke. And that's what happened on the stairs. And then in the middle of it, as writers, you can be in the worst mood and the most horrible state of mind. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to write about this someday. And I started writing one of the stories, and I can't remember which one I started writing in 2001. But as the years progressed, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to tell the story. I'm going to have to do this in a way that people understand that mental health happens to everybody, and it's nothing to be ashamed about. It could be, you could have a couple bad days. Well, I had a bad day for 18 months, and I was on Celexa, and I was on Wellbutrin, and I gained a whole bunch of weight. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want anybody to look at me. I was kind of started dating a little bit after the divorce, and that was the stupidest thing to do. But I realized that it was stupid after a few things that happened with these men that I chose to bring into my life. And I thought, and when the break happened, I gained a whole bunch of weight because who's going to want to date a fat Stacey who didn't color her hair? Now, of course, I ditched the dye on purpose a year ago, but this was 2001, when everybody was coloring their hair. So, and these stories just kind of started coming out. I'd write a little one here, write a little one there. And I started remembering all these things that may have added up to my brain break. And for example, I talk about when I was 10 years old, and I stole a walnut from the Piggly Wiggly in Reseda, California, and my mother pried my hands open. And when she saw that I had stolen a wallet, she dragged me, her big long nails digging into my arm, into the manager's office, telling me I'm a thief and I'm going to bring shame to the family and how dare I do this, and so things like that, kind of got to me. I talk about something silly and funny. They're not all serious stories here. I do throw in some humor. I talk about when I tried out for cheerleading in high school. Now in high school, it was the stupidest thing to do. I have big, things here, and they didn't have the bras back then, to hold you in. And I'm sitting, and I chose the song "I Get Around" by the Beach Boys, to do cheerleading thing with. And if I was my mother, I would have said, just stick to school politics. You don't need to be out there cheerleading, stick to your volleyball. And those kind of moments, it was embarrassing to me because I look at it afterwards and thinking, why did I do that? And I have embarrassing moments like that in this book. And I talk about my relationship with my father. My father was the Beverly Hills pharmacist, the consummate Beverly Hills pharmacist in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and until he died in 1993. And he gave way more to the pharmacy than he ever did it to our family. He always looked like he wished he was somewhere else. And so I have a story in there called The Pill Pusher's Daughter, which I wrote here. And I also am pushing a TV series right now we're trying to get bought called The Beverly Hills Pharmacist, that a partner of mine and I wrote, an episodic television series. So I got about that. And of course, I talk about the stupid men I bring in my life. And hindsight is always 2020, right? It's always 2020, but looking back on these things, for me, it's magnified 1,000%, not just 2020. And the stupid things that I did and the stupid decisions I made and some of the betrayals that I did to my friends and a boyfriend in particular who was amazing. So I put all this in here because all these things add up for me, to what this mental health breakdown could have been. Because like I said, I wasn't allowed to break down, and I did. And I just hope that these stories make you laugh, make you cry, make you look at yourself and go, okay, I'm not the only one who makes these idiotic decisions, but we survive, because all of us, whoever is watching this, every one of you has survived something. Mm-hmm. By the time, some, unfortunately, children, they're surviving things at a very young age, but by the time some of us reach our 20s and 30s, we've all survived something. Some of they're different than anybody else's survivals, but it's who shapes us and who we are. And that's my goal with this book, Empty Cupboards, is to create community and create conversation about mental health, especially among women our age, because we need the community. We need to be kind to each other. We need to be able to talk and pick up the phone and, oh my gosh, thank God for my girlfriends, is all I have to say. Is my girlfriends really got me through this time, so that's why I wrote the book.
Wow. That's awesome. Any questions? Comments? And we can get it from Amazon?
Yes, Amazon right now. It was an accidental launch at the end of August. I asked a girlfriend or two to buy it. And then I said, then can you put some reviews on Amazon for me? Well, they bought it, and then they started spreading it all over social media. And I was completely unprepared. You're supposed to have your launch. You're supposed to do this and this and this. I didn't have my website up. It was an accidental launch. So it took off on its own. And I'm still trying to catch up because I self-published this book. I had an amazing team with it, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so I'm just sending out emails saying, hey, interview me, right? To talk about this, because I really don't know what I'm doing. And it seems to be okay. I mean, I've got a few royalties lined up. I looked on my Amazon thing. But I'm totally in the red, with this thing. But yeah, it's on Amazon right now, and I'm going to get it out there to more places. It just caught me by surprise. So in a good way.
Yes.
I think what would be most enjoyable about your book is the sense of humor that threads throughout, because it looks like you've injected every page with it.
Yeah, if we can't laugh at ourselves,
yes,
not when we're in it. When we're in the stuff, we can't laugh at it. But looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, rolling my eyes here. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. The book is available everywhere, and we'll put it on our reading list. And so honored to have you. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to come back and
Thank you, Elizabeth.